You're now listening to the Fantasy Filler Podcast, where we put you in the driver's seat every week, all year long. In the NASCAR racing world, from top news stories, latest results, and best fantasy lineups, we'll have you up to speed and out in front before the drop of the green flag. So let's dive in with our host, Vanilla Wafers.
We just got done with Watkins Glen International, which means it is now time to look at the playoff picture going into the last race of the regular season. Huge playoff implications here in the Cup Series, and we're going to be talking about the final results of this race as well as the final results in the Xfinity race. That as well as our fantasy picks and more on today's episode of the Fantasy Filler Podcast. You know, I was really talking this race up. I really was. I thought that this was going to be a really exciting road course race. There was going to be a lot of craziness that happened throughout the race from beginning to end. Yeah, that didn't really happen. That didn't happen at all, and all I can say is we may have a new contender for the worst race of the 2023 season. It caught me completely off guard, so all I can really say was I was wrong. I was wrong about this race. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. One of the most important things we need to mention is that there's still one more spot left that drivers can secure to make it into the playoffs. For the longest time, it was 3, but after the person who won this race was able to get the victory, that means now there's only one spot left. And whoever that may be, man, they better give it 145%, 200%, 1,000%. I don't care what number. It has to be more than 100% at Daytona International Speedway, because that is going to be their only chance to make their way into the playoffs. With that being said, why don't we talk about the Xfinity Series race here real quick? I'm going to make this one actually super quick because we all know what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the craziness that happened in the Cup Series race. So let me just give you guys a quick overall description, summary of the Xfinity Series race. The Xfinity Series race was mostly dominated by a Cup Series driver, the number 19, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs was running part-time down here in the Xfinity Series. Once again, goes back into the number 19 machine and does exactly what he needs to do in that machine and try to get the victory. However, there were multiple cautions near the end of the race and strategies that were playing out to many different people's favors, and one driver who was staying out the longest when it came to fuel strategy was a Mr. Sam Mayer. There near the very end, he decided to stay out, and he thought that he was going to be working really well on that inside lane with Ty Gibbs right behind him. But no, Ty Gibbs decided to bump into him going into turn 1, as well as shut the door going into turn 3 and 4 on the S's during one of the final restarts of the race, which really ignited anger underneath the driver in the number 1 machine for Junior Motorsports. However, there was a big caution that went after the bus stops that took out multiple drivers, including Kaz Gralla, Justin Allgaier, Brandon Jones, Alex Bowman in the 17. You also had the number 4, number 10, number 25. All of them were involved in this incident. Most of them were able to continue on. Some drivers were not able to, including Kaz Gralla, and Brett Moffitt was another one who couldn't really continue. So a real shame for them. But here on this restart, you had Ty Gibbs leading them to the green flag, and Sam Mayer puts the bumper to him. Absolutely pushes him out of the way and going into turns 1. Cost him an opportunity to win the race at first, as Sheldon Creed was able to get through, and it looked like Sheldon Creed was going to get his first victory, but with 1 lap to go, Sam Mayer was able to get back to his back bumper, easily pass him, and get his second win here in the Xfinity Series. It was a great performance by Sam Mayer. I really did not think he was going to be able to win this race. He looked like a top 5 car, but his strategies worked really well. He was able to save a lot of fuel. Some people were so afraid to run out of fuel that they kept pitting there near the very end, and Sam Mayer stayed out for, gosh, what was it? It was like 40-something laps, and he was able to have it survive that long, win the race, and do some burnouts. Ty Gibbs was obviously very upset by the incident. He was credited with the 17th position overall. Really didn't have anything nice to say to Sam Mayer. He did say congratulations, but in a very condescending way, because he was just like, I run in the Cup Series, so I was trying to get my 13th win here. But congratulations to him, as he's gotten way more races under his belt here in the Xfinity Series to get his second win. Just a lot of shade and just a rivalry that we absolutely love here in the Xfinity Series. Sometimes we wish that these two could race against each other more often, but obviously Ty Gibbs, he deserves a spot in the Cup Series. Sam Mayer is starting to figure out the Xfinity Series, so great job for him. As far as the payback went between Sam Mayer and Ty Gibbs, I think it was rightfully given by both sides. Ty Gibbs can be upset all he wants, but the way he was racing Sam Mayer, you can tell that he was not going to race him too kindly. So the fact that he was kind of shocked that he did that, well, maybe not shocked. I think he knew it was going to happen. He was just hoping it wasn't going to happen, but obviously Sam Mayer wasn't going to let that fly. So good for Sam Mayer, in my honest opinion, and also good for Ty Gibbs to really hold his anger in. He didn't really do anything crazy like he did at Martinsville last year. So a lot of maturity right there, but still, he's only going to be credited with the 17th position. Second spot was the number 2 is Sheldon Creed. So close once again, just was not able to work out for him. He had a top 10 car, so for him to have an opportunity to win the race was absolutely big, but unfortunately it was not able to play out for him, as he did get loose going around the final turn, going to one lap to go. That's why Sam Mayer was able to catch up. Finishing third was the number 48 of Parker Kligerman. He needed to gain a lot of points, and he was able to do that here in this race. He was trying to catch up to Sheldon Creed. Well, Sheldon Creed finished in front of him, but one driver who struggled with the finish was the number 98 of Riley Herbst, who unfortunately suffered suspension issues early in the race on lap number 37, putting him down to the 35th position. He is now no longer having that huge cushion that he would like to have going into these next couple of races before the playoffs begin here for the Xfinity Series. Remember, they do not cut off here at the end of the Daytona race. They still have a couple races after, as their final race is at Kansas. So a little bit of stress right there for Riley Herbst, as he did have a fast car, but unfortunately, due to suspension issues, something that was completely out of his control, he unfortunately was not able to finish the race, and he will be credited with the 35th position. In the fourth spot was the number 91 of Ross Chastain, one of the better finishes for DGM of all time, so great job for them. Also, one of the best finishes for the number 24 of Connor Mosack, as he finished 5th. Then you got the regulars who are going to be running for the championship this year, in my honest opinion. Finishing 6th was John Hunter Nemechek in the 20, the 00 Cole Custer finishing 7th, and then in the 8th spot we have the number 16 of Chandler Smith, who was the highest finishing rookie. Then you have Cup Series regular number 17 of Alex Bowman in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 was the number 27 of Jeb Burton. This race was absolutely fun. It's something that you expect here at Watkins Glen. You got yourself a lot of action. I mean, the first half of the race was clearly dominated by Ty Gibbs. No one was keeping up with him at all, but you could definitely tell that the pit strategies were going to play out in a way that made you kind of think to yourself like, oh, who's going to get the advantage here? This is going to be pretty interesting. And that's exactly what happened here at the very end. I mean, everybody who finished inside the top 10, I think about 50% of them were on one strategy and everyone else was on a completely different strategy. It was unbelievable how it all finished out. And the biggest winners here, obviously Sam Mayer. You can also give a big W to the number 48 team, as they were able to catch up to the cutoff line, and also give a shout out to Connor Mosack in that 24 machine, being able to finish in the 5th position, and JD Motorsports for getting their cars to finish 12th and 13th, a team that usually runs near the back. For them to have both their cars finish inside the top 15, that's got to be a great feeling for both Brandon Poole, Kyle Weatherman, but overall JD Motorsports as a whole. As a point sit right now, as since we did not get a new winner, that means that we don't have really a huge change as far as the cutoff line goes, as Sam Mayer already had a victory. But here's the drivers who are currently locked in. Still the number 21 of Austin Hill, the number 20 of John Hunter Nemechek, the number 3 of Cole Custer, Sam Mayer in the 1, Justin Allgaier in the 7, Chandler Smith in the 16, Sammy Smith in the 18, and then Jeb Burton in the number 27. 4 drivers are in by points right now. Here's those 4 drivers. The number 8 of Josh Berry sits 106 points above the cut line. The number 11 of Daniel Hemrick, he also ran into some problems here in this race. He finished near the back, so he lost a bit of ground from that cutoff line, as the number 11 of Daniel Hemrick, I almost said Denny Hamlin, sorry, he sits 28 points above the cut line. Sheldon Creed in the number 2 sits 22 points above the cut line, and Riley Herbst, the number 98, who had himself a pretty good cushion, now only sits 3 points above the cut line. And the only driver who's really has a shot to make it in by points is that number 48 of Parker Kligerman, who was quite a few points behind going into this race in the double digits. He's now knocked that down to 3. And then everyone else on back, including Brandon Jones in the number 9, is 61 plus points behind the cut line. They're basically in a must-win situation. So if you get an opportunity to watch the highlights, definitely do so. The battle between Sam Mayer and Ty Gibbs was absolutely great. And there was also some conflict between Sam Mayer and Austin Hill on that restart as well, as he did make contact with Austin Hill, who was running up front. Just the strategies were great, and this was one of the best road course races of the year for the Xfinity Series. I really do believe that, especially here in the second half. It's exactly what you expect out of here at Watkins Glen, and this is probably why Watkins Glen has been sold out for so many years for the Cup Series race. 8 years in a row, to be in fact. It's because it puts on great races like this. That is until we get into this Cup Series race. So without further ado, why don't we dive into the final results for the Gold Bowling at the Glen at Watkins Glen. Alright, so in this race we had a total of 36 cars on the entry list. No open charter cars for this road course race. Absolutely surprised me, but I guess when you have the Indy road course that close to the next road course race, you literally one after the other. I guess I can kind of understand everyone wanting to focus on that one, so it is what it is. But we had a total of one caution. One caution once again, and it was on lap number 57. So if you think about it, it was about 3 hours of green flag racing that we had since the last caution. That's how long these green flag stretches have been for this road course event. And we only had 6 lead changes amongst 5 different drivers. At first, it was a little tough trying to figure out who was going to win the race. But after lap number 21, it was pretty clear on who was going to dominate this race, getting his 5th win of the season. My boy, William Byron, leading 66 out of the scheduled 90 laps for the first time since 2006. The 24 car is back in victory lane at a road course, and the first road course win for that number 24 machine of William Byron. I'm not going to lie. I did not mention him once when we were talking about fantasy. Not once. I basically called him the other Henrik Carr. And I really, truly believe that was going to be the situation for the number 24 of William Byron. 100% wasn't the case. Not at all. From the moment the green flag dropped, actually the moment they went off the hauler, he had himself a really fast race car, which is kind of the disadvantage to doing those fantasy episodes before we see practice and qualifying. Shame on me for that. I didn't realize it was going to be making that much of a difference, but it clearly showed that here with this number 24 team, who I thought maybe at best they were a top 10 car. So that's why I didn't want to talk about them at all. But by God, look at this. 59 points. Hopefully you guys did not listen to me as far as the 15 picks go, and you guys mostly focused on qualifying and practice, because for that number 24 car, it really played into your favor. They're looking absolutely great here heading into the playoffs. They've now won races at basically almost every type of racetrack here in the last 2 years, let's see here. What racetracks have they won at this year? They won at Las Vegas. That was a great moment for me. I really enjoyed that. They won at Phoenix. They won at Darlington. They won at Atlanta in a rain-shortened event. So I don't know if you want to really count that too much. And then they won at Watkins Glen. So basically, you get a super speedway win. And by the way, he also won at Daytona for his first ever victory. So he has some talent at super speedways. He looks really good at the mile and a half. So he showed that at Las Vegas. The championship race is at Phoenix. Darlington is the first race in the playoffs. Things are looking really good for that 24 team. It's been a rough summer stretch, but like Rudy Fogel and all of NBC said, William Byron tends to struggle during the summer stretch all the time. And for him to only just fall off a tiny bit, not really that much that we have seen in the last couple of years, I don't know. Keep an eye on that 24 team. I'm going to be super excited once Phoenix comes around, because he is just on fire. I really think he can make it into that championship four with the momentum he has. So great win for the number 24 team. But again, I apologize to everybody for the fantasy picks, because I did not mention him once during Friday's episode. Finishing second, we had the number 11 at Denny Hamlin. He was the pole sitter. So something about Denny Hamlin, when it comes to qualifying, he's been doing really good. So at the Charlotte Roval, do remember Denny Hamlin, because he did this at Sonoma. He's done this now at Watkins Glen. And if he does not have that mechanical problem at Sonoma, or it's not the mechanical problem, he made a mistake at Sonoma, I bet you he finishes inside the top 5. So Denny Hamlin's a pretty consistent driver. Although maybe not the driver who's going to win the race, he's been showing a lot of consistency. And he he was able to prove that here in this race. Finishing in the third spot, we have the number 20 of Christopher Bell. I thought Christopher Bell was going to be a pretty good pick. At least he showed up for me. Same with AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger, it's a bittersweet moment for them to finish inside the top 5, just for the simple fact that they know they needed the victory. But as AJ Allmendinger said, they just needed a W in some shape or form. It didn't have to be the win itself. It would have been great if it was the win itself. But for them to finish inside the top 5 after an abysmal performance at the Indy Road Course, they are going to be happy with this. Definitely a good showing by them, and who knows, maybe they could be a contender for that Charlotte Roval race. It's going to be very hard for him at Daytona, as super speedways are not a great track for the number 16 machine. So we shall see what happens here, but hey, at least he was able to get a top 5 finish here at Watkins Glen. Finishing 5th, we have the number 54, Ty Gibbs, his best showing so far in the Cup Series. He's starting to figure things out slowly but surely. I did not think he was going to be a driver running for the victory, and then during stage 2, I almost changed my mind. I thought to myself, wow, actually he might be able to get up there. But there near the end, he lost a couple of valuable positions. I thought he was going to be able to get around Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. Turns out he lost positions to Christopher Bell and AJ Allmendinger when it was all said and done. But still a really great showing by Ty Gibbs. I don't know if he's going to be a contender for the Daytona race. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in that race. It's going to be absolute chaos. That's all I can say. But again, another driver with a really good performance here at Watkins Glen. He needed the victory, yes, but you know what? For it being his second top 5 finish here in the Cup Series, that's still got to be something to be proud of. And Ty Gibbs showing why moving him up to the Cup Series was not a bad idea. In the 6th through 10th position, we have the number 19 of Martin Truex Jr., the number 17 of Chris Buescher, the number 45 of Tyler Reddick, and the 2 Penske cars, the number 12 of Ryan Blaney and the number 22 of Joey Logano. The only person to score any stage points out of this group was Tyler Reddick with a 10th place finish in stage 1, where he was basically going down pit road. I expected way more out of Tyler Reddick. I really did. I thought Tyler Reddick was going to have himself a really good performance here, and it didn't really show it that much. I thought, maybe he was going to be up there with Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs when it was all said and done. It just never happened. Things did not work in his favor, but he still showed that, hey, he's still a really good road course racer. Maybe not at the same level as he was earlier this year, but still a very valuable driver to keep on your fantasy rosters whenever a road course pops up, because at the very least you're going to get a top 10 out of him. Same with Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher was able to get a top 10 once again, but also no stage points. It was very interesting to see Chris Buescher just hanging around right there in the 15th position. For him to finally finish inside the top 10, it's like, okay, thank goodness. He brings that consistency still to these racetracks, so good for him. But a good turnaround for Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, drivers who really struggled in the Indy Road Course race. They were able to turn things around here in this race. Still not a phenomenal performance, so if you did not put him on your fantasy roster, it's not really that much of a loss because they didn't score any stage points. But to see them get top 10s here near the end of the regular season, that's got to bring some hope to some people who are rooting for the Penske camp. Some drivers who finished outside the top 10 that we need to mention here. Let's focus on our fantasy picks. Let's focus on the one that everyone is talking about right now, and that's with Chase Elliott. He finished 32nd in this race, 1 lap down. What in the world happened to Chase Elliott? Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. During the second pit cycle here in this race, Alan Gustafson told him to stay out, make sure to keep an eye on your reserves. You should have 3 laps to go around the racetrack. You should be just fine. All of a sudden, bam, Chase Elliott runs out of fuel. Everyone's like, what in the world? How did that happen? Well, Steve Letarte went more into it, and he's like, reserves for 3 laps? That doesn't exist at the biggest racetrack. That exists like at Richmond. Maybe a mile racetrack. That doesn't work here at Watkins Glen. You don't have that big of a tank. So basically what happened here was it was a huge gaffe on Gustafson's part, and it cost Chase Elliott an opportunity to go for the victory here in this race. To be honest with you guys, I don't think he would have been able to get the victory. I don't even know if he was going to be able to finish in the top 5. But this all but secured those doubts that he was not going to win this race. There's been a lot of people that I've been seeing on social media that are really bagging on Alan Gustafson, and I agree with that. Yeah, I'd say you bag on Alan Gustafson. You can't make a mistake like that, especially in such a vital situation like it was right here at Watkins Glen. But to say that they should fire him, get rid of Alan Gustafson, I think that's a bit of a stretch. It's been a rough year for Chase Elliott. Make no mistake on that. How much do you blame on Gustafson for that, which is his crew chief. I don't know, really. You can blame him for this race, but all the other races, I don't know, it really falls on Chase Elliott's end. It's not due to the fact that the Hendrick camp doesn't have any speed. I mean, look, you got William Byron with 5 victories, and then you also got Kyle Larson with a victory, and also some strong performances here and there, and unfortunately didn't happen here at this race. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then Alex Bowman, he had himself a strong performance here at the beginning, but once he got injured, he just hasn't been the same. And Chase Elliott, believe it or not, in a way, his numbers for top 5s and top 10s, if we were keeping the average for these 17 races compared to his 36 races, he's on track to hit that same exact number when he was winning the regular season championships. The difference is, when he's not able to finish inside the top 10, it usually is this type of situation where he's not even in the top 30. That has happened a couple times this year. And also, he's missed quite a few races. That's another thing to also consider. It's like, when you miss 7 races, by God, the fact that you were even that close to make it into points is shocking in itself. I agree. It was a bonehead move. But for people that are really bagging on Alan Gustafson, you stop. Just stop. As far as trying to get him that he should be terminated. It makes no sense at all. He's one of the better crew chiefs of the turn of the millennial. And in fact, I'd say he's probably right there in the top 5. That's a big number. That's a big number. But I really think he's in the top 5. He got the likes of Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon, who, believe me, they're legends in the sport of NASCAR. They are. But they were in the twilight zone of their careers when they had Alan Gustafson up in the pit box. And he was able to get them both championship opportunities before it was all said and done as a crew chief. He brought them really good cars. The last season for Jeff Gordon was not really the best season, but the team was struggling as a whole. He still made it into the championship 4. What about Kyle Busch? Kyle Busch really struggled with Hendrick Motorsports. Yeah, you can't really have that many dominant drivers up there during that time. It used to be pretty rare. But even then, in 2007, Kyle Busch was a championship contender before he got taken out by Dale Earnhardt Jr. in one of the 1.5 mile racetracks. So keep that in mind. He's been with Chase Elliott since the beginning of his Cup Series career. And to be honest with you, Chase Elliott has always been a championship contender after his second year. He's always been in that mix. Hell, you can even make the argument that when he was in the 24 car, he was a contender to make it into the championship 4. He's been phenomenal with him. So for him to have one bad season, it happens. For him to make a mistake, yeesh, that's really bad. This one is really bad. But to say to get rid of him, come on, guys. Come on. I do not agree with that at all. But enough with the Chase Elliott situation. Basically, all you need to know is he needs to win at Daytona if he has any shot to make his way in. Number 34, Michael McDowell, had himself a great start to this race. He led 17 laps. He was also able to win stage 1. But unfortunately, he suffered electrical issues in the middle of this race and also had some pit road mistakes. More specifically, he ran over too many pit stalls, which gave him a pass-through penalty. He also had his pit crew jump over the wall too soon. All I can say is thank goodness he was able to get that win at the Indy Road Course, because that was very important, especially with this horrendous finish here at the end. He finished 36. He finished dead last. And that's a bummer for the team. It really is, but they should really keep their heads up. I mean, my goodness, they were still able to get themselves a playoff point, so that's going to definitely help them out. Now you're sitting with 7 playoff points instead of just 6. And believe me, every point matters. Don't believe me, ask many drivers in the past here for the way these playoffs play out. And Michael McDowell, the team's still showing good consistency. It's just right here they had a mechanical problem. They also have to really fix their pit road mistakes. We've seen them when they're perfect, they can get the victory. But when they make mistakes, they can throw away a race rather quickly. So Michael McDowell unfortunately did not give us the points that we needed, but still a great showing overall as far as how he was running before he suffered with the electrical issues. Another driver here in the top picks, number 99, Daniel Suarez. This is all I got to say about Daniel Suarez. If he doesn't qualify inside the top 5, don't throw him in your fantasy lineup. I have now learned that, because the man's going to make a dumbass mistake at the freaking beginning. I don't know how Daniel Suarez can throw away a race in the first 5 laps. I don't get it. He did it at Sonoma, where he did the shifting problem, and then he did it here at Watkins Glen. He cannot do that. And I'm being really rough on him, but at the same time, it's just like, dude, You got to show up at these points, and you're not doing it. Sonoma, it's great you got that win at Sonoma to get your first ever win, but we got to see you at points when the pressure's on, and he folds like a piece of paper. For him to finish 22nd and not really have anything for this race is the most shocking. And now he's basically told us all, hey, if I don't qualify inside the top 5, don't trust me. I'm going to throw the race away. And that's really rough to say on Daniel Suarez. I love Daniel Suarez. He's an amazing guy, amazing driver. I hope he stays with this team for the long haul, because I do believe he brings that excitement to this team. But, man, that was very frustrating to see it happen the same way at Sonoma. It's like, damn it, dude. Damn it. And then Kyle Larson. What happened to Kyle Larson? He finishes 26th in this race. Kyle Larson, unfortunately, was caught speeding out of the exit pit road, which is crazy because he's one of the final pit stalls there, but he was caught speeding. It is what it is. And unfortunately, the way these cars work is track position is absolute king. And a lot of people don't like that. Believe me, I understand. I remember the Gen 6 era where track position was all that mattered. And it happened here with Kyle Larson. Unfortunately, he was not able to serve his pit road penalty before the caution came out with Chase Elliott, so he had to start at the back of the field. And he was making his way through, and then he made some contact with Austin Dillon on the final lap, which inevitably ended his day. So people who had him, who were thinking, maybe I'll get 30 points out of this, unfortunately only ended up with 23 because of that incident. You know, Kyle Larson was very, very upset. I can understand that. A race slipped away from him. He was going to have himself a solid finish, and it just did not pan out. Got really upset with Austin Dillon. It's just one of those situations where drivers just lose their cool. And he absolutely lost his cool here in this race. I don't think this is signs that, hey, he's going to fall apart during the playoffs. It was just a race that slipped away that could basically define all of 2023 for Kyle Larson. That's just how it's been this year for Kyle Larson. You know, you have a good car and then something happens. It almost reminds me of Jeff Gordon 2012. Maybe not to that extent, but in a way, it's been that much of a bad luck season for the number 5 machine. I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to pick things up when the playoffs start. You know, he's really good at Darlington. You know, he's really good at Kansas. I'm pretty sure Bristol, he's going to put on a good showing. I don't really have that much fear for Kyle Larson. I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to pick up right where he left off last year, trying to get his car into the Final Four, whether it's for owner points or for driver points. Hopefully it's for driver points, because we all know that is the most important thing. Let's look at some other drivers that we had here on our fantasy picks. All of the drivers to take a gamble on, oh man, they gave us Sandos. Let's just say that. If you don't know what a Sando is, that's basically a zero. You didn't get any money out of them, because Austin Cindric didn't do anything. He finished 16th. Chase Briscoe really didn't do anything. He finished 35th. I think he was suffering from mechanical issues, but still. Yeah, it absolutely sucked. Alex Bowman in the number 48. He didn't do anything here in this race. Eric Jones didn't do anything, and Brad Keselowski didn't do anything. Didn't even get any stage points. I don't know what happened here. Again, maybe it's one of those situations where we really have to pay attention to practice and qualifying on who we want to rely on to take a gamble. Because let me show you the qualifying positions. Austin Cindric in the number 2, he was going to start 17th. Maybe he could make something out of that. I don't know. Chase Briscoe, 26th. Yeah, you're not going to do anything there. Alex Bowman in the number 48, he started 18th. I don't really think he was going to do anything there. Eric Jones, the 43, 31st. And then Brad Keselowski, 24th. If they're not showing speed in practice and qualifying, then they're not going to show speed here in this race. It's very rare for some drivers to turn things around here, because Martin Truex Jr., he was somehow able to finish inside the top 10, and he started in the 19th position. And they said they were absolutely shocked by that, so that gives you a sign on what to really look for here when it comes to picking these gamble drivers. And unfortunately, we did not pick the right ones. That's all I'll say on that. Overall, this race, not much really happened at all. Basically, everything I explained in this episode, that's all you need to know about this race. Even though the race was an hour and 58 minutes, which, by the way, is one of the shortest races they've had in a very, very long time. It was less than 2 hours, and this race was done. But you don't need to watch the full 2 hours. You only need to watch, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, that's all you need to watch about this race, because nothing else happened in between. Very, very shocking for Watkins Glen. That does not happen here that often, but unfortunately, another road course race that we expected way more out of, and it just didn't happen. And it's a shame that the ones that have been struggling the most are the ones that have been in NASCAR for so many years. So this race, I give it probably a 4 out of 10. It wasn't really that great. Probably the only reason I'm giving it a 4 out of 10 is because William Byron won, and I'm really happy about it. But overall, it wasn't a complete shit show. It wasn't a shit show at all, so I can't drop it any lower than that. But it was just boring. It was just boring. At the very least, you can watch Texas because it's like a train crash in front of you. You just can't look away because you don't know what else they're going to screw up here. This race, you just watch it and you're just like, I'm bored. I'm bored. I feel like someone who's an outsider who looks at NASCAR like, this is what I expect. And that's a real bummer for such an exciting racetrack. But, man, Watkins Glen, bottom of the list for this season. And that will conclude the final results for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. As far as our top 3 goes here in our fantasy league, before I talk about our top 3, we had a total of 7 teams finished with 200 plus points. Congratulations to you guys. Unfortunately, I sucked Pangus here this week because I had Michael McDowell, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson, and all of them fell apart in one lap. I was like, well, that's it. I'm done. And I was like, what was my other drivers? Oh, shoot. I had Daniel Suarez as well. Welp. Not going to be a good week for me. But some of you guys actually had yourselves a really good week. And here's the top 3. In the third spot with 215 points, we actually have a tie between 3 different people, as we have Truex Fan 2022, Drop Top, and FC Bayern, all scoring 215 points. You guys were all in the third position. In the second spot, all by himself at 218 points, we have Elroy's Lead Drivers. I don't think I've seen that name before. I may have already said that before. It's just not one of those names that pops up to me. But if this is your first time making it into the top 3, congratulations to you. This was definitely a race that screwed over a lot of people because they probably picked the likes of Chase Elliott, Michael McDowell, those guys, and really fell apart. But the person who mastered this week in fantasy was Stuart Haas Racing 14. Scoring 222 points. Congratulations to you, good sir. I'm pretty sure you did not have Chase Briscoe on your fantasy roster, but the other people you had on there, man, oh man, you were able to kill it here this week. An awesome job. The best performing fantasy team you could have had was William Byron in the number 24, the number 11 in Denny Hamlin, then Christopher Bell, AJ Allmendinger, Ty Gibbs. Everyone who finished inside the top 5, they were also able to score the most points here this weekend, as the most was William Byron with 59, and then in the 5th spot was Christopher Bell with 43. If you want to follow me on social media or join our fantasy league, let's talk about the fantasy league first before I go into social media. If you want to join that, it's fantasygames.nascar.com. I'm still trying to figure out the prize for the winner. At the very least, it will be the 124 diecast, custom-made one that I made last year with my decals of the same car that you see on the thumbnail for the podcast. But I might throw in something different if the person who wins wants something different. I totally understand that. We'll figure it out. But if you want to join our fantasy league, it's at fantasygames.nascar.com. Just join the NASCAR Fantasy Fillers. We have 90 members on here. Could we get to 100 by the end of the season? We might. We just need one person for every single race here. Hell, we can even miss a week of someone not joining, and we can still hit 100. That's very cool, guys. Thank you guys so much for that. And if you want to follow me on social media, just look up Vanilla Wafers on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. Also, if you use Facebook, that I have a little channel there. That's mostly just for my friends and family, so they don't have to go on other social medias. They can see what I'm doing. But yes, just look up Vanilla Wafers on any of those platforms. You'll be able to find me. More specifically, Instagram is at Vanilla Wafers 33. TikTok is Vanilla Wafer 44. YouTube's just Vanilla Wafers, and Twitter is Vanilla Wafers 44. All of it's NASCAR related, whether it's humorous, whether it's trivia, all that good stuff can be found there, and I have a lot of fun doing it, and the growth has been unbelievable, so guys, thank you so much for that. One more race here in the regular season. It will be Daytona. You don't want to miss that race. It should be a very exciting one, to say the least. I cannot wait to see what happens, which drivers will make it in, which drivers will not. Here are the drivers who are currently locked in before we wrap up today's episode. I figured I'd do that here real quickly. 15 drivers are locked in, and here are those 15. William Byron in the number 24, Martin Truex Jr. in the 19, Kyle Busch in the number 8, Denny Hamlin in the number 11, Kyle Larson in the number 5, Chris Buescher in the number 17, Christopher Bell in the number 20, Ross Chastain in the 1, Ryan Blaney the number 12, Tyler Reddick in the number 45, Joey Logano in the number 22, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the 47, and Michael McDowell in the number 34. Those 13 drivers have made it in, locked in due to a victory. Drivers locked into points are the number 4 of Kevin Harvick and the number 6 of Brad Keselowski. One spot remains, and right now it's Bubba Wallace in the number 23. He sits 32 points above the cut line. Everyone else sits 32 or more points behind. Basically, win and you get in. That's all that can happen here, basically, in this race, unless somehow Ty Gibbs is able to score 50 points and Bubba Wallace wrecks early in the race. That's the only way I can see maybe a point shift here in the final spot. So it's going to be very exciting, and we will have a fantasy episode here in the coming days. But let's wrap up there, guys. I have been your host, Vanilla Wafers, and I have been able to take you to the front of the field. So why don't we grab that checker flag, do some burnouts, and head on out. So you all take care. This has been the Fantasy Filler Podcast.